This is the Self-Aware Leader Podcast. Now your host, Jason Rigby.
What is going on, everyone? What do you think of when you think of a self-aware leader? What does that look like for you? When you think of self-awareness leadership, who do you think of? Well, I'm going to kind of go through some people in history that demonstrated self-awareness. And we can all take a human, especially from back in the day, and cancel them and say they did this wrong, so why should we learn from them? That's a huge mistake, guys. Every single human, including yourself, has some skeletons in the closet. If somebody wrote a biography about you and they were honest, what would that look like? There's some things you wouldn't want really known. So we don't have a line to cross of where we're completely not guilty about anything. So this is part of self-awareness. You would never cancel anyone if you were self-aware. And if you were displaying leadership, because every person, whether you view them as being morally right or morally wrong, depending on what moral scale is out and popular in the day, whether it's the right with Christianity or whether it's the left with wokeism, it doesn't matter. Whatever this view of morality is not for you to play God and decide that. Universe, whatever you want to call it. Source. The whole idea is this. Every single person we learn from, every single human has a story to share for us to learn. We have a learning mindset. And that's what history is for us to learn. Whether you agree or disagree doesn't matter. If it's something that you view as evil or bad or whatever it is, then you can turn around and do the opposite and learn how that happened. How did Nazi Germany become Nazi Germany? How did that happen so rapidly? And the disgraceful and horrific things that happened. How did Russia turn the way that it did and millions of people were slaughtered? How do we get this? How do terrorist organizations happen? All of these things, whether that we perceive them as negative, as above, so below, the so below lets us be able to learn. As above, that's the easy part. When we see somebody display honesty, we see somebody play highest vibration, love, we can catch on to that, can't we? The self-sacrificial model of Jesus, we see that. Buddhism, Nelson Mandela. I mean, the list goes on and on of people that we know that have displayed self-aware leadership. And I want to talk today about someone that we know, and that is Abraham Lincoln. If you're not from the United States, he was a president in a time where the nation was divided like never before. There was actual civil war. People are talking about that may happen again here in the United States, but this was actually happening. There was the North and the South, and they were divided, and brother, uncle, cousin was killing each other. And few leaders exemplify self-awareness as Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States. And whenever you look at self-awareness, the other two things I think that mix really well that Abraham Lincoln showed was empathy and resilience. And sometimes you look at this and you're like, self-awareness, I get empathy, but I don't get resilience. And we're going to get into that of his leadership and the lessons that he learned. And I think Lincoln's life, more than anything, was a testament to self-reflection and his ability, as we've heard him say in his, and you can read biographies in his writing, is his ability to not just self-reflect, but have that continuous learning. He was born into poverty. He was all self-taught, mostly self-taught. And he had, everybody talked about, he was always reading. He had this thirst for knowledge. He had a thirst not just for knowledge, but being able to understand it. That's a big self-aware leader motto. When you read something, make sure you're not just grasping knowledge, but that you're understanding what you're reading. You can listen to this podcast and maybe you've tuned me out. I've done that with podcasts. But you're just like, what is Jason trying to say? How can this help me? How can I understand what this person is saying? And this requires you, another self-aware principle, to be present, doesn't it? To not let your mind wander and go off into past or future thoughts. So how did he go from poverty to the highest office in the land? Well, I think one of the things that was huge is he was able to reflect on his experiences, learn from his failures, and then adapt and strategize. Now that is huge. How do you take something that you failed in? Because we can see this over and over again in his life where he just kept failing. He had tons of tragedies in his life also. How can you take that experience of failure, make a strategy from it, and then adapt and be successful? Well, that requires emotional intelligence. And he exhibited a high degree of emotional intelligence. And even having to the point as president of the United States, sharing this idea of creating unity when the nation was completely divided and fighting and killing each other. And his capacity, guys, to manage his emotions, to understand the emotions of even his enemies, bringing his enemies in, having meetings with those that would soon find him dead. He would have meetings with them and try to understand the emotions of them. Now, these are when emotions were hot. The hottest it's ever been. Think about this. We think it's tough now, but we don't have people. I mean, we have psychopaths killing Americans. We've seen that. But I'm talking, we don't have a nation divided killing each other. But he wanted to understand both sides before he would make a leadership decision. That's emotional intelligence. Next was his adaptability, which is an evolutionary principle. Amidst the Civil War, Lincoln demonstrated adaptability. He would modify his stance constantly. He modified what he viewed as slavery. He modified what he viewed as human rights. He changed those. He adapted to the needs of the nation. And then he challenged, rightfully so, he challenged those human rights and what people at that time believed. Now let's get into the other side of Lincoln, the humility and acknowledgement of mistakes. Lincoln was known for his humility. And there's a book on this. It's really, really great. It's called Team of Rivals. But he assembled a team of rivals in his cabinet. And they purposely were diverse perspectives. They purposely opposed him. And he put that in there because if he was humble and he allowed these people to oppose him, then he could learn where his weaknesses and strengths were. You don't know that. Your ego will make you think that you're a 10 in everything. And as a leader, this is so important. Those people that you don't like, that you think undermine you, those are the people that you need to get to know and have them share what they're viewing as a weakness. Because perception is reality, isn't it? To that person. So find out the reality, because there's going to be a percentage of people that will agree with them. And I want to nip that in the bud right off the bat. This is a self-aware approach to governance. It's a self-aware approach to leadership. Next was his inclusivity and empathy. Lincoln's leadership was marked by inclusivity and a deep-seated empathy for all citizens, regardless of their standing. He pursued over and over and over and over again a united nation. People were so divisive, but yet he said there is a collective human experience and America is America, and we need everyone to be a part of this. And I think the legacy of a self-aware leadership, and with Abraham Lincoln, to me, is one of hope. It's one of resilience. and it's one of an unyielding pursuit of a more equitable nation. And I think that his self-aware leadership not only navigated the United States through this darkest hour, but it set a precedent of what transformation can happen if we have self-aware governance. And I think all leaders, Republicans and Democrats, need to go back before we have another civil war here in the United States, need to go back and understand what Abraham Lincoln did and follow that pattern. And know that people can disagree, and that's fine, but there's still respect for human rights. Abraham Lincoln's narrative is a compelling exploration of how self-awareness, empathy, adaptability, and humility can foster social progression. It's a resounding testament to the enduring power of self-aware leadership. And he created positive change. And that's what we are as a self-aware leader. Our whole mission is to change lives, to love people, to create, to catalyze positive change in people's lives. That's what he did as a president, and that's what we need more of today. Get out of the political bull stuff. Stop listening to that politics stuff. Stop watching and listening to those podcasts. Stop alienating the right-wing person that you lead or the super left-wing person that you lead. Bring them into your office, coach them, find out how you can take the good things of their view. Maybe the conservative person doesn't like all the change that's happening. Find out what they disagree with. See what's right and what's wrong. Take the right things from them. Let them know, say, hey, you said the other day that you were worried about this, this, and this. I think you hit on something when you said this. Because there's going to be something that they're going to say that's right. Even though you may agree or disagree with them as being conservative and right-wing or whatever that is, you will find something that they're right about. And you could say, you know what? You're right about that. I want to do this. Can you help me lead this? Somebody on the far left that's an employee. Have a conversation with them. They're like, you're alienating these people. How are we doing that? Show me how we're doing that. What can we change in human resources? What can we do that's balanced? I know you have this belief over here, but I want it to be fair for everyone. What does that look like? There may be a weakness that you have that they're concerned about. Maybe they're compassionate about something. Understand that. Have empathy. Don't dismiss it in judgment. As a leader, you're not supposed to judge anyways, right? We don't judge. If we're present, there's no judgment in the present moment, is there? Allow yourself to lead. Allow yourself to lead with love. And look for these self-aware leader examples, and I guarantee you, you will start creating positive change in your environment.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Aware Leader Podcast with host Jason Rigby. We hope this episode has inspired you to unleash your full potential and embrace your inner leadership. By expanding your consciousness, you can transform your mind, body, and soul and become the remarkable leader you were always meant to be. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your loved ones and help us expand our community. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you join us again on the Self-Aware Leader Podcast.